Hello, and welcome to Confidently Controversial, the podcast.
Hello, everybody. I hope everyone's had a fantastic week, and we're just happy to be here and speaking with you.
You're so formal this morning. What is this, NPR?
I don't know. I'm trying to be nice to the people, Kim. I want to talk nice to them because I like them, and I'm glad that they're listening to our show.
Yes, thanks to everyone who's listened so far. We wanted to say that we really appreciate all your downloads, and we would love to hear your comments. We would love for you to like us, follow us.
We would love for you to like us.
We would love it. Let me tell you.
Like us, please. Just like us.
It would make our day.
How do they like us? How? How do they show their love, Kim?
On the podcast business thing. They go in and they say, hey, I like you. And they leave a comment that says the same.
Okay, they can do that. And you can, definitely put a comment. Tell us, do they rate us? And tell us that we're great. And then follow us on Instagram because we're putting up all the fun content. So.
Yeah, at Confidently Controversial on Instagram. And now you can hear us on Spotify and iHeartRadio and, of course, Podbean, where we got our start. So I'm Kim Tweed, just to remind you, and I'm here with Emily Paul.
That's who I am.
And we do a podcast about things that fucked us up when we were kids.
Yes, we do. And we expect this is going to be many, many episodes because we just have so many things to discuss. But I think it's nice to be able to talk about this kind of stuff, I think. And one thing I was thinking about this week is that, when there's a lot of things that go on in your brain that you feel very weird about, I think. But then when you say them out loud to somebody, what you often find is that the other person will say, oh, yeah, me too. I have this thing that's weird about me, and then you don't have to feel so alone and weird by yourself. So if we can provide that to anyone by being like, yeah, we're really weird and have really weird anxieties and fears and everything, and we're okay with talking about them. And I think that that's so much about our friendship with each other is
Definitely.
We talk a lot about this stuff, and it's just so helpful to have a friend to talk to about this stuff. So, I love you, Kimmy.
Oh, I can't say I love you because it's really hard for me, but I do.
Well, we're going to talk about that in another episode. But today, as we do in all of our episodes, each week we pick a different movie that we've both, sometimes one or both of us has watched it a bunch, but it definitely had an impact on us and or one of us, and then we watch it and we discuss it. So each week one of us picks and the other one does not know what movie it is. So this week it's Kim Tweed's pick. She's picked a movie. I have no idea what movie that is. She's going to pick it. We're going to talk about it. Then we're going to watch it. And then we're going to talk about it some more. So take it away, Kim Tweed.
Excellent. So I'm very excited to watch this movie. Very excited to watch this movie. Haven't watched it in I don't know. It's been a really, really, really long time. But after listening to you talk about your space camp experience as a child, I went back and tried to find something that was like a really big movie in my household.
Okay.
And it's an odd choice, but my mom doesn't like very many things. And my mom used to say how much she liked this movie.
Okay. Oh, my God. Kathy liked it?
Yeah.
Definitely I like it.
And then when my sister, who's a fan of the podcast, hey, Siobhan.
Shout out Siobhan Hebron.
So she was like, you have to watch this movie. So, and she's 10 years younger than I am. So for her to remember it as well, I feel like it had to be a pretty big thing in our household.
I'm so excited to hear what this is.
Okay. So this movie came out April 26th, 1985.
Okay. So 85.
We were 8 years old. Okay. My sister wasn't even born yet.
Okay.
So
we are 8. Okay.
Right.
3rd grade.
So my assumption is, and I don't think I watched this movie when I was 8 years old. It's rated PG-13. Mm-hmm. It was filmed in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay. It was directed by Lisa Gottlieb, which I'll tell you a little bit more about her later because there's an interesting thing that kind of ties back into the whole premise of this movie.
Okay.
It was written by Dennis Feldman and Jeff Franklin. And Jeff Franklin, you probably know because he created Full House and Fuller House and he's famous for those types of things.
So essentially a legend.
A legend, yes.
Okay.
He was also did something with the movie Summer School.
Oh, I love that movie.
I know.
Oh, what a great movie.
Mark Harmon at the day.
That's not the movie we're watching.
No.
Now I'm sad. I want to watch that movie too.
He also had some things to do with the Golden Girls and Laverne and Shirley.
Wow. He is a legend.
So I saw this quote about this movie and it made me laugh and made me like it. It says, "It's not a great movie, but a charming, likable one."
Oh no, what are we going to watch?
And then if I go through the people that have starred in it, you probably really won't recognize any names because I did look into this to see, because I don't know where any of these people have gone. They certainly didn't have vibrant careers after this.
Oh, so there's like no stars in this.
There's no stars in this. Well,
Okay.
you can decide.
Okay.
So Joyce Heiser is the lead.
Okay.
Billy Jane,
I don't know who that is.
William Zabka, you know who that is.
Do I?
Yes,
Who is it?
He's the bully from Karate Kid.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
There's someone named Clayton Rohner, and then Sherilyn Fenn.
Oh, Sherilyn Fenn, Twin Peaks.
Yes. Yes. So I kind of looked up to see what these people were up to. They didn't really do much. Billy Jane, I think you'll recognize. He was in a show called Parker Lewis Can't Lose.
I love that. That was like a Ferris Bueller.
Like a poor man's Ferris Bueller.
Or rich man's Ferris Bueller.
Right.
You decide.
And he was in lots of other 80s things like Silver Spoons, The A-Team, Rags to Riches.
Oh, yes. Rags to Riches. I
Right.
just sent you a clip of that recently, didn't
You
I?
did. You did.
I love that. Was that a show?
It was a show.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a great show.
It was a great show.
So this movie is a loose adaptation of the Shakespeare play Twelfth Night.
I have no idea what this is.
So do you want me to tell you the name of this movie?
Please.
This movie is called Just One of the Guys.
Oh, no. This is a great movie for this show.
It really is.
For this show.
It really is.
And I can't believe this. Now I'm reflecting back that your mom liked this movie.
She did.
No. Okay, continue.
So this movie's Just One of the Guys. The premise of this movie, do you remember?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Do you want me to say what it is or what I think it is?
What you think it is, yes.
Okay, so what I think this is, and now I remember Cheryl Fenn being in it, is that it's a girl, like a cis woman, we'll say.
Yes.
Who's in high school.
Yes.
Who, I forget the reason why, but goes to another school and pretends to be a boy.
Yes.
At the other school.
Yes.
And Sherilyn Fenn, like, falls in love with her as a boy.
Right.
And that kind of creates some kind of stuff. I remember a scene with, like, a stuffing situation.
A rapping situation.
I remember a wrapping of the breasts.
Okay.
But also, didn't she, like, stuff something down her pants, too?
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I don't remember but that's the ascent, right? That's the premise of it?
Okay. So she gets passed up to be, like, a summer internship or something she's, like, a journalism student in high school.
Okay.
And a boy gets picked to do something
Oh, okay.
that she wanted to do.
Interesting.
So she goes and dresses like a boy so that she can get the same opportunity. Now,
wow. Huh.
fun fact about this is that the director, Lisa Gottlieb, claims she helped write this movie, but was denied writing credits on the final film once it came out. She says she worked on multiple iterations of this film, that she put a lot of input into it, but they would not give her writing credits on it.
What? Because she's a girl.
They don't say that specifically, but they kind of cut her out of the writing of this film, which I thought was interesting and also maybe a little like...
That's weird. They're like, we'll let you direct it, but we're not going to give you credit for writing it.
Yeah.
Huh.
And then, so... we can talk about this a little bit after we watch it, but one of the things I was pleased to see, because I thought about all the problematic aspects of this film that it could possibly present, but one of the things I read was that it had a huge influence on young gay and trans women.
Okay.
And was actually a very positive force.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. So I got this quote, and I thought it was very interesting. It says, Although it may be cloaked in a silly teenage romp, I was absolutely drawn to this project because of its subversive gender identity messages for both young women and young men. The film actually operates on so many different levels and deals with so many teenage issues, from homophobia to the pressure this put on kids to conform to a certain ideal, that it always surprised me that at the time of its release, it was not really judged for the sum of all of its parts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe
So
it's going to be
it may
fantastic.
not be as problematic as I think I remember it being.
Yeah, I remember it just... I mean, I kind of remember watching it. Like, I definitely watched this movie. I don't know if I was, like, 8 when I watched it, but I feel like I definitely watched it.
It must have been on TV a lot.
It must have been on TV a lot. Like, I knew of it.
Right. I know there's boobs in it.
There's boobs in it? We're
Yeah.
going to see some boobs today?
Yes.
Whoa. I know we watched it. I just feel like it was very... like one of those kind of movies that you didn't want to watch with your parents around. Like,
Sure.
it was a little bit awkward.
Well, apparently we watched it all the time with my parents around.
Kathy Tweed was like, hell yeah. This is great.
watch it.
Let's watch it. Let's see those boobs.
Don't say that about my mom. Jesus.
Sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I take it back.
Okay. All right. So anything else you want to say, or anything else that you were thinking about with this movie? Do you remember the characters? Do you remember anything?
What I remember a lot is I remember Sherilyn Fenn's being a character, and she, if I recall correctly, she's the one who falls in love with the girl dressed up as a boy.
Yeah, but I don't think that's not the main storyline, though. Because there's the girl that dresses like a boy also falls in love with another guy. She's got like a college boyfriend again. Very big theme in the 80s.
It is a theme. Oh my gosh. And do you know anybody in high school? Like, when we were in high school, do you know anyone? I don't think,
No.
Yeah.
No. Nobody
No.
had a college boyfriend.
Nobody had a
Wasn't the
college
thing.
boyfriend. No.
But yeah, but there's also a guy that she falls in love with. As she's a guy, a girl being a guy, she falls in love with a guy. And
So interesting.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to watch this, just based on when it was out and everything else. So that'll be interesting.
it certainly will be. So
Oh
are you
my
ready
goodness.
to watch it?
I was born ready. Let's do this.
All right. Let's go.
All right. We're going to go watch a movie.
Confidently controversial. Confidently controversial. All right, we are back.
Oh my goodness.
How are you feeling, Emily?
Oh man, I don't know. I have a lot to say, but I do want to turn it to you first because, you know, as we talked about before, this was a big movie in your house. Mm-hmm. All the little Tweeds watched this movie, which is really great.
I don't think we were little. I can't imagine we were little. It must have been on television a lot because we did watch this movie a lot. My sister, as I mentioned, put this on the list of things that she needed us to watch. It was one of her tops, and she actually asked me the other day. She's like, "Have you watched it yet?"
Well, so I want to hear from you. You haven't watched this in a while?
No, I haven't watched it for a really long time, but I do see some things that I would have liked about it.
Journalism. I thought of you.
I know.
because you went to school for journalism, and
Right.
journalism is the whole thing
The
with
crux
this.
of
It's the crux.
Yeah, it's the crux.
It's the crux. So what? I'll give an overview. Do you want me to?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
You go ahead.
So this movie is about a girl named Terry who is in high school. And for all intents and purposes, she is very popular and gorgeous and very, very cool and stylish. And, you know, it seems like she's the girl that everybody really likes and, you know, wants to be with. But she's also into journalism. So she takes journalism in school. And there is the opportunity to win a summer internship for the big newspaper.
The Sun Tribune.
It's the Sun Tribune. So there's this opportunity to win, and she gets passed over, and the people who get it are two boys. And it becomes clear from the teacher's kind of a dick.
Yeah, I think they make it so they try not to make him a dick because, but Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. So anyway, the teacher, she's kind of making it like, well, you passed me over. If I were a boy, you would have picked me. And the teacher's kind of like, yeah, I don't know. Like, your stuff is good, but it's not great. And it's kind of boring. And also, you know, I need to pick people who really might have a career in this because it's a big deal to have this internship. And he's essentially saying, I don't think you have a career as a journalist. And she's like, au contraire, I'm going to show you. So obviously, what would she do? She decides to cut off all of her hair and dress like a boy, borrow her younger brother's clothes, and be a boy at a neighboring school because her parents are away for 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yes.
So within 2 weeks' time, a lifetime is lived. And she cuts off all her hair. She enters herself in another school as a boy and is kind of living her life as a guy. And also, but the thing, well, I'll go back to it. So then she ends up meeting another guy she falls in love with. And, you know, that's...
Hijinks
ensue, and yada, 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 the end. So,
and I just want to say really quickly before we start, this is kind of, I mean, it really is truly based on my life story because I can't tell you how many people were like, you should be a model and not a journalist. And I was like, I know,
but I care about words so much that I get out of breath while typing, which is fully what this girl does in this movie. She's like typing and she's like, and she's wearing like, I guess that's, okay. I'm just going to stop for a moment.
Okay.
There's some 80s tropes in this movie that I want to address.
Definitely.
The first one is in the 80s, apparently girls just walked around in their underwears and a tank top or bra all the time. And, like, they just want to be comfortable, and that's what one wears when one wants to be comfortable.
However, I will say all the boys did, too, because in the locker room, now, I've never been in a boys' locker room when it's been full of boys. However, in this locker room, which in many 80s movies locker rooms, the boys just walk around with everything hanging out. And in this one, they were all, like, wearing their jock straps.
Yeah.
With their heinies hanging out. And I feel like that was always a thing. That is a big thing in movies. And I feel like, I don't know. I personally remember the girls' locker room as being like people basically hide behind their locker doors to get changed.
And trying to get changed like within your clothes as much as possible. Like, how can I just have the least amount of skin showing as I change shirts?
And no one ever took a shower.
No, I don't even know why they had showers in there. Like, who's taking a shower?
Yeah, no one ever took a shower after gym class to go back to school.
First of all, you didn't have time.
Yeah.
Like, gym class was what, 40 minutes long?
And if you did it right, you weren't really working up a sweat in gym class.
I took gym class very seriously, Kim. I was a super, super jock, and I loved gym class very much. So I think that was an interesting trope. A lot of of course, throughout the movie, I just kept thinking about the stuff that you talked about earlier, where this was potentially an important movie to, trans youth or young, gay kids watching this movie. And I kind of thought to myself, I don't know this. It would be something interesting to look up, but nowadays there's movies that definitely cater to that audience and that address, fully address head on what it is to be growing up, as trans or gay or, there's certainly more of those characters. And I feel like I wonder if this movie intended that, like, to kind of like be that, or if it just kind of backed into it. Because
I think it backed into it. I don't think it was intentional, but at the same time, I would assume, like, we hear about a lot in movies and TVs today. I finally get to see myself on screen. I finally get to see someone like me on screen. And that's why it's so wonderful that we have all these diverse films and TV shows and things that are representing other attitudes and other cultures. So I think back then, there wasn't that. So you had to look for these bits and pieces that were thrown in kind of tangentially.
Sure.
To find yourself in these movies. So I can see why it's not like there was other movies. So I can see why someone who was experiencing that in their lives looked to this and said, hey, that's me. I'm finally on TV.
But in like a lot of different ways. Like, I almost feel like it touches upon, like, if you were a young gay woman.
Right.
You know, there's certainly that aspect there. If you were, you know, androgynous or trans, there's some of that there. If you were a young gay boy, there's some of that there, because towards the end of the film, you know, she's a hetero girl and she befriends a boy at the other high school, and she is falling in love with that boy, but she's completely looks like a boy, you know, so he thinks that she's a gay boy who's like, you know, this is like that kind of thing happening. Right. So I also wonder if young gay men saw themselves in there, that too, this hiding thing, which is certainly an undertone, it's interesting to me that gay people found this movie and really liked it.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the strong themes in it, but I also think one of the strong themes is obviously feminism, and this kind of a commentary on what girls are supposed to be and what boys are supposed to be, because you have her brother, Buddy, who's supposed to be 15 years old, and he is basically just a giant perv.
I know, but at the same time, I also feel like it celebrates the fact that he's this... I'm sorry, like, he's a young teenage boy, and he thinks a lot about sex. And, I mean, it's way over the top.
He's a very likable character.
He's a very likable character, but, like, he hangs up centerfold pictures where you're in his room, and all you see in the background in all the shots that are done in that room is just fully naked women, like full frontal, everything is there. This
afternoon you went over to someone's house and they were like, come into my room, and those decorations were on the wall, you would immediately feel like you were in danger.
Oh my God.
Right?
I'd be so scared. Well, no, but he has parents, and like, is it kind of like, because he's hanging them all up in the beginning of the movie, and the beginning of the movie is supposedly when their parents are going away. So they have this 2 weeks to just the two of them in the house.
Right.
So he hangs all of these centerfolds on his wall. But I mean, I have two sons.
Yeah.
And if I came home and one of my sons had decorated his room and just plastered it with naked ladies, I'd be like, to my husband, I'd be like, Alex, you have to talk to him. What is that? Like,
For
this
sure.
we got to get a counselor involved. Like, this is a problem.
Yeah, definitely the assumption for me is that they get into all these shenanigans because the parents are away.
Right. But that's the weird thing too, because it's all supposedly within this 2 week span.
2 week span.
Where so much happens in 2 weeks.
Yeah. But it can it?
It can. Like, prom takes place in those 2 weeks, and also the main character Terry also has this like hunky soap opera boyfriend who's supposed to be Kevin, Mr. Wonderful, who I did recognize from being on Santa Barbara, which was a soap opera that was watched a lot when I was younger. So I knew I recognized him the first time he came on screen. I was like, who is he? What was he in? And Kim's like reading off all these things he was in. She's like, Santa Barbara. I'm like, Santa Barbara. That's it. That's where I know him from.
Was it a daytime?
It was a daytime soap opera. Yeah, my mom really liked soap operas. Okay. So we watched that one quite a bit. Okay. But, you know, she's not that's the weird thing too, is that even though there's this underlying feminism, it's not like she's so, like, such a feminist. She just really wants to get this thing. Like, she just wants to be a journalist.
She's trying to prove a point.
But
at the same time, all right, answer this question for me. When she went to
okay,
please,
I'll try.
Well, when she goes to this other school, she gets somehow magically enrolled in this other school, because that's just what you could do, I guess. And
if you ever watched 21 Jump Street, you totally could do that in the 80s.
So, right. Okay. So anyway, she goes to this other school and she writes an article and she gives it to the new guy, and basically the new professor, journalism teacher, is still saying it's not as good.
I know. So then I'm thinking, like, well, what's the whole point? Like, wouldn't it make more sense if the new professor was like, you are a fantastic writer? Because they're trying to set it up like in the beginning that it's like, well, the only reason she didn't get this is because she's a girl.
Right.
And that's when her teacher took, like, when she didn't get the thing, that's when her teacher's like, well, you're an okay writer, but, you know.
You're beautiful.
You're beautiful, so why don't you think about a fallback career in modeling?
As you do.
As you do, because that's always someone's fallback career.
Right, but then she goes to this other school, hands in the same article, and he's like, yeah, it's good, but it's pretty boring.
Right, which is essentially what the other guy said, too.
Right. So then she goes on to, you know, pretend to be a boy, write about that, and that's how she actually gets the internship.
Right.
But I kind of feel like it was like it kind of nullified the point she was making. Because
And it absolutely did. I know. The second that happened, I'm like, well, I don't understand. So I thought it was just because
So she's not that great of a writer, or she's a little boring of a writer, and she needs to get better.
So she decides to dress as a boy.
Right, but she keeps going.
She does. I mean, she's fully invested in doing this thing, which, you know, I mean, she looks like Ralph. She does look very androgynous, which is why they picked her, I'm guessing.
Yes. And you were going to say who she looks like.
She looks like Ralph Macchio.
Right, which is, when I was doing some research for this, that's who they intended her to look like. They styled her after Ralph Macchio, which is interesting since...
Yeah, the guy, the
William
bully,
Zabka.
he's also in this, and he's also a bully. And I kept thinking, too, I feel bad for this actor. I feel bad for William Zabka, because I feel like, you know, he's just an actor guy, and he's probably nice in real life, but he's always getting cast as this total jerk. And I'm sure that impacted his life in some way, shape, or form. To be like, you know, if everyone's always watching you in these huge popular movies and you're always an uber dick, people probably start to think that you're a dick, and he's probably a very nice person. So I feel like he's an actor, for gosh sakes. And people kept hiring him for things. Yeah. So I feel like...
Well, now there's that new Karate Kid remake show, too, that's had like 4 or 5 seasons, and he's on that.
And he's like the main character in that.
Yeah. Well,
my brother-in-law is very into that show.
Ralph Macchio is, you know, he's still the Karate Kid, so he's still the main character. But, yeah, he's still in it. That other guy.
I know, but I still felt kind of bad for him watching this, where I'm just like, oh, like at a certain point, this guy kind of had to like just give in to the fact, like, I guess this is just what I'm getting cast as,
so what
and I'm
Emily
making
is
money.
Saying is Emily feels bad for the bully, and she sympathizes with the bully, and
I fully
you guys
do.
should always remember that.
What? That I sympathize, that I'm a kind person who thinks about people in a different way and can see people as being for who they truly are.
Okay. Yeah, so I also think too, you know, there's a lot of that, like when the brother Buddy is teaching Terry, his sister, how to be a boy, he says something, he says, no, guys take up space.
Oh, and again, I thought about like man spread and how that's like a thing now.
Very interesting.
It was interesting. He also said, all balls itch. It's a fact.
He did say that. Because
I wrote that one down.
He tells her she has to scratch her balls more if she wants to be an authentic gentleman.
I know. Well, I guess, and then she's seeing all the jock straps. So it was kind of like an interesting commentary on like, because I think it also had very stereotypical girls in it, where it's like the girls are just worried about, like in the beginning of the movie when her best friend comes in and she's got like 4 boys that want to take her on a date or something, and the main character Terry's like, well, which of them is like, rate them from like the least lame to the most, and she's like, well, they're all lame. She's like, well, what kind of cars do they have? How do they dress? So I feel like it was also stereotypical on that side of things, where it's like, okay, well, this is what a stereotypical boy is, has a great car, dresses really nice, like that's gonna make you a really cool guy. And then to be a really cool girl, you have to be really sexy and really pretty and dress nice, and, you know, not worry about your career, just worry about being pretty for your boyfriend.
Right. And they're so excited about Terry's college boyfriend because he's perfect and he's Mr. Wonderful and he's all this stuff, and he makes her more worthy as a person by having that college boyfriend.
Right. And she's fully into the college boyfriend. And and like, you know, I don't know. I always think it's very weird in these movies where it's like, I have a college boyfriend. There's also a scene where the girl brings a 6th grader to go on a date with the high school boy. Oh, yeah. Which was also very weird.
Right. Sherilyn Fenn's character likes boy Terry, and she wants to go on a date with him, and so she creates a double date where Rick Morehouse, Terry's friend, goes out with a friend of hers who happens to be her cousin, who's like a 6th grader.
I know. I thought Sherilyn Fenn was a much like bigger part of this movie than she actually is. Like, she's really barely in this movie. she's probably in this movie just as much as the nerd characters in this movie.
Yes,
and I love the nerd characters. There's a scene in this movie where these two nerd characters who are always together are picked for separate teams in gym class, so they have to be separated onto different teams. And as they're being separated, they're like, meow. And I feel like that's you and me, Kim. If we had to go on separate teams, I would fully be like, meow.
I wrote down that I called them Star Trek dorks for some reason, but because they spoke like their own like special language.
Yeah, like very like robot-y. We are nerds. And then they had like another nerd always had reptiles with him.
His nickname, they called him Reptile.
Okay, but he always had like frogs in his pockets and lizards crawling on him, which I'm like, what is happening in the school that they're just like, oh yeah, bring in like a copperhead snake and have it wrapped around your neck. Like, that's totally fine, dude. Like, you're a weird nerd, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Well, keep in mind, this is the same school where Terry basically catches the teachers talking about her and the way she's dressed.
I think that's a different school. That's her original high school.
Okay,
but still, like you overhear the teachers talking about the high school girls, like two male teachers talking about the high school girls, and they kind of say like, oh, we should hold her back another year so we can like still look at her for another year, which is so gross.
Did you see what she's wearing today?
Which is like, yeah, there's some things in this that are very predatory, but they're not. They're almost like taken as they're beats for sure, but they're beats like, oh, that's jerky, not like, oh my God, like this is
horrible,
a horrible, awful thing.
Yeah.
Another thing that happens towards the end of the movie is that Terry's best friend is this girl who she's really pretty, but they act like she's not.
Yeah, that's a weird thing because she acts like she's not getting any dates or anything like that. And like everyone pays attention to Terry.
Right.
But she's like cute.
Yeah, she's cute too. I don't understand the problem.
Blonde haircut and everything.
Right. So she goes to Terry's prom with her friend, like as like Terry when she's dressed as a boy is like, listen, I need a date for a prom. Just come be my prom date.
Mm-hmm. Because she's a good best friend.
Because she's a good best friend, and she did it. And I told Kim that if she needed me to go to prom with her, I would do it. Just because we're best friends. So I want you to know that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. I'll consider it when I'm considering dates for the prom.
Good.
I have a lot of options, Emily.
I know you do. Your husband being number one. But yeah, so I like, I thought, so what I was saying was she goes to the prom and there's a band, which was also a weird 80s thing where I feel like, was that a thing? Did people actually have bands at their dances?
Well, I don't know. Not at our dances. It was always a DJ.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, we went to dances in the 90s.
Oh, right, yeah.
Like, so did they used to have bands? You know, somebody from that era definitely let us know. Because it seemed like there's in a lot of movies, it's like they have full-on bands playing the music at prom. But, you know, nowadays it's just, you know, someone playing some records.
Okay, Grandma.
But anyway, so at the prom, the bass player in the band is giving the eye to this teenage friend in the thing, and then like he ends up dating her, which I guess it could be that the band was also high school kids.
Oh, I don't think so. They were old men.
But they all look like old men in these things. Like, geez, the love interest in this movie looks like he got hit hard with middle age in high school. He definitely looks like he has, like, you know, grown children that are getting ready to go off to college. Right. But he's supposed to be the hottest thing, which is very interesting to me.
Yeah, I didn't really understand that casting choice because he's kind of dorky. He's not a very popular kid.
And he's not very handsome.
No, he's kind of weird looking. He's kind of like pale and doogie.
I know, and I don't want to make him feel like, I don't know, like, you're fine. Don't feel bad. Like, you're fine. You're fine. But it just seemed weird for this movie that it would be that guy. Although I guess maybe that's part of it, is that she falls in love with him. Like, before she's in love with Mr. Wonderful, like, the guy with the cool car and everything else, but then she ends up falling for the guy who maybe isn't super cool.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of it?
Maybe. I also think I see why when people have midlife crises, they buy convertibles because like convertibles were like the thing in the 80s. To have a convertible was so cool.
I don't think I've ever... Have I ridden in a convertible before?
Know.
I think I may have. I don't think I liked it, though. I think it kind of scared me a little bit.
I have a sunroof. I never open it. It's not that great.
No. I'm cold. It makes me cold just thinking about it.
Your hair gets all messed up.
No, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Although, I guess when you're younger, you like to, like, roll down the windows and play your music loud and stuff like that. I mean, we did that.
We did, yeah.
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 Okay. If we had a convertible, it'd be
probably had
easier.
shitty cars that didn't have air conditioning.
I don't talk ill about my black Sundance. It was a great car.
It did what it needed to do.
It did what it needed to do, which was be really cool when I needed it to be cool. Another 80s trope in this movie that I fully enjoy is the lunchroom speech on top of, like, when you stand up on the table and you give a speech to a lunchroom and everyone quietly listens and there's no teachers around. They're like, get down off the lunch table, which is totally what would happen in real life.
Yeah. Sure.
If you even stood on the bench part and started addressing the lunchroom, some teacher would come flying across the room and be like, you get down from there, Miss Tweed.
Why would I do it? I would never do that. I was a good kid. But I also think, too, that, I mean, the fact that the bully exists in the first place to such a level where he can, ruin 45 kids' lunch by just
dumping their lunches on the floor. Yeah, because that's what the bully is known for. Like, he comes around the lunch tables to the nerds during lunchtime and he picks up one end of the table so that all of their lunches on the table just slide off onto the floor and everyone's just powerless against him. And I guess the teachers are just... And they also show the janitor, and the janitor's just like, ugh.
Yeah, so sad.
Now I'm going to have to clean up more lunches. I know. And, like, he fully ruins this new outfit that the one boy has, that he probably spent money on. And I feel like nowadays, parents would be involved. Outraged.
Rightfully so.
I just bought this new jacket for my son, and this other boy came and spilled spaghetti all over it, and now it's ruined. Do you know how much that jacket cost?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes no sense. But he does get up on the table. He gives this speech, which is kind of funny. I also like that. I feel like it was kind of showing that comedy is king, and... he really shut down the good-looking bully by being kind of funny.
And smart.
He's intelligent and smart, and he stood up and he was funny. And then because he stood up and was kind of funny, he ends up getting the really popular girl to like him.
Yes.
So...
And he gets to go to prom with her.
And he gets to go to prom with her, which was a really big deal.
Yes.
Prom was a huge deal.
Yes, we know that.
Was prom a big, huge deal to you, Kim?
I mean, I feel like it was made to be a really big deal and something to worry about, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Like, I definitely feel, and I think that's the same today. I mean, people worry so much about these things. I mean, even to, like, a bigger extent where they have these promposals and there's that whole level of social media that's on top of it. So I feel like it's even worse now than it was when we were in school. But you could see even in this, I mean, this was the 80s and there was all this pressure to, go to the prom and do all this stuff. But I feel like now it's all a photo op. So it's
definitely way more fancy now than it was before, too. Like, I didn't feel like it was super fancy, did you?
When we went to prom?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it was in like a, it was just in...
Well, one of our proms was at, Trump...
It wasn't Trump. No, Trump Plaza.
Trump Plaza.
We did go to Trump Plaza.
We had to take buses.
We did, and my bus driver had a heart attack on the way home and pulled over. And don't you remember that story?
On the way home?
So on the way home, the bus driver started we were driving in Atlantic City. Bus load full of teenagers coming back from prom.
Okay.
Me and my date, who is now my husband.
Oh.
Yeah. I like how you said that as if you didn't remember.
I didn't remember who your date was, I gotta be honest.
Oh, no, my date was my now husband. So we were towards the front. We were in that first row. And so we could see the bus driver and we could see all of a sudden in the middle of Atlantic City, he pulls the bus over and he kind of puts his hand to his chest and is like, and I'm going to Alex, oh, no. Ask him what's wrong. And we're just totally goofy high school kids. And I remember Alex being like, hey, you okay, dude?
Oh, no.
Yeah. And the guy was like, well, I just can't. And then he completely shut down. I remember there's a bus driver, he didn't pass out or anything, but he was fully just I can't deal with the fact that I have a busload full of kids. And I remember there were some kids on my bus who wanted to get out, leave the bus to go find a phone because we didn't have cell phones or anything.
Yeah.
Who wanted to go leave the bus to find a phone to call 911 or something.
Yes.
And the bus driver was like, no, like you can't, nobody gets off the bus. And like nobody knew what to do. But I guess maybe he radioed someone and eventually someone came. So we never got back until way after the fact.
For like after prom.
So that was our glamorous prom. We couldn't even, we had like, I forget what happened, but.
That's weird. Because I feel like I went.
You were in a different bus.
I must have been in a different bus.
You were.
Huh.
Yeah, so that was me and Alex and my fantastic prom. But nice. Prom was like a major thing, still is. So, yeah. And I also wrote down that the prom in this movie reminded me very much of my uncle's wedding.
Okay.
So my uncle got married very young in the 80s. So it must have been like right around this time because it happened the summer before second grade.
Oh, wow.
So I was like 7 years old at the wedding. But I remember all the men in his wedding wore like gray tuxedos and all of the women in the bridal party wore different color pastel sherbet colored dresses, like rainbow sherbet was the colors of these dresses. And then on the wedding cake were dolls. So like there were different tiers of the cake. So you had the one in the middle with the bride and groom doll, and then each of the bridesmaids had their own little tier cake that had a doll on it with that color dress that they had on.
You can't see my face, but I'm amazed by this.
This is what happens when an 18-year-old plans a wedding. I think she was even young. I think the artist formerly known as my Aunt Shelley was like maybe 17. Like I think they were both very young. But that's what you do when you're young. You have dolls on your cake, on your wedding cake, and they're wearing pastel dresses.
I think that I will have a cake with the pastel doll of myself on it.
For your next wedding?
For my next wedding, yes.
I think that, I think we definitely have to. But in my mind, it's like, remember how they used to also have dolls that would cover, you'd put their legs in the toilet paper?
Yes.
Yes, so it was very much like that.
Well, I had I had a Barbie cake once for one of my younger birthday parties, probably 3 or 4. That was a Barbie stuffed into a cake that looked like her skirt.
Oh yeah, they still do that, I think.
Yeah,
that's still a thing.
Yeah, it is, but it was really cool then too.
It's great. It sounds awesome. Yeah. So back to the movie.
Okay.
If we go back to our premise, I don't think like. Again, I didn't watch this a lot as a kid. I probably watched it like maybe once or twice. I don't think I watched it when I was very young or anything. But I think aside from there are some very awkward moments in this movie. And even at the end, like the way that she reveals that she's a woman to the boy that she likes is she flashes him.
Yes.
Like she fully like rips open her tuxedo shirt and shows her breasts.
Yes. Which she, I know he said something about banding them up at the beginning, which she does not do somehow.
She wears a lot of layers.
We're just supposed to assume that she is walking around with a white tuxedo shirt on, with decent sized boobs, and nobody notices her boobs.
No one notices her boobs at all. I will say that the actress that they chose for this is very androgynous looking. So when they cut off her hair, they make her, I feel like in the first time you see her dressed up in her brother's clothes as a boy, she still has a very feminine, she has makeup on, and that's probably the thing. Like, she still looks very feminine. But then by the time they show her at the school, like, I feel like they do something with the makeup that makes her, like, jawline. Like, some makeup artists really did a good job, because I feel like she does look a lot more masculine. You know what's interesting about her? I looked her up, too. She dated Bruce Springsteen for a while, which is interesting because there's Bruce Springsteen, and I feel like the younger brother kind of dresses like Bruce Springsteen. Yes. There's Bruce Springsteen poster in her room in this movie. And she also, after she broke up with Bruce Springsteen, dated Warren Beatty.
No way.
Yeah, She pulled
Going
down
around.
some
Good for
hot
her.
80s dudes.
Well, I saw that she was, they called her a video vixen in one of the things that I read because she was in the ZZ Top video for Pincushion, which I'm not familiar with.
No, if it's not, I know Legs. That was a great video.
She was in the Dan Hartman video for the song I Can Dream About You.
If I can dream about you. That was good.
Yeah, that was good. And then James Brown really did help Rick with his dance moves.
Really?
Yeah, on set.
Oh, wow.
How about that?
That's crazy. Like,
Yeah, because he's like into James Brown and into like, he says he's into music.
So somebody maybe knew James Brown and was like, hey, we have this character in our new movie who's like really into you.
Yeah.
And okay, well, that's interesting to me. Here's another thing that I thought was, so you go through this whole movie, and like I said, it's like, at moments it is poignant. At moments it does maybe without
Have a message.
It has a message, but I almost think it has a message like beside itself. Like unconsciously, it's kind of poignant.
Yeah, I don't think that, and I think the quote that I read earlier kind of spoke to that. Like, I don't know that it was intentionally meant to do what it did.
Right.
I think it was just supposed to be like a fun high school.
Like she's going to pretend to be a boy.
Right. And what happens next?
What happens next? So I feel like, but it's interesting to me that at the end of the movie, it's like this thing never happened because they immediately go back to regular gender roles where, you know, the boy that she ends up liking, the middle-aged
man. Yeah.
the middle-aged man that she falls in love with, who is also a high school student. He comes and picks her up in his car, and it's like a cool convertible, and he's like, well, I'll go on a date with you, but only if I can drive. Like, so he's kind of wants to reinforce the stereotypes again, and she's like, oh yeah, of course, like, I'm just a girl.
Yeah. Well, remember, and there's also a part in the movie when she's still pretending to be a boy where she makes him a sandwich.
Okay.
And she like brings him a sandwich to school, and I just felt like that was very much like.
Is that what you do when you like a boy? You make him a sandwich?
Well, that's a traditional gender role thing. Like you make.
It's true. Well, I also think that they kind of sprinkle in some things that might make you think. I don't. Again, going back to that gay thing, where, you know, they're in the bathroom and she doesn't want to see him pee, and she's like, what are you doing? You're peeing. And he's just like, yeah, I'm in the bathroom, that's what you do. But he's kind of weird, and so I feel like that the it's not like that the male character would think that she is a girl. He would think she's gay.
Right.
He's gay. So there is that whole dynamic there, but I don't feel like the people who wrote this or made that movie necessarily play into that, except maybe a little bit at the end when she's like, the real boyfriend, the Mr. Wonderful guy, shows up at the prom, and it's just made to seem like he's gay and that's his boyfriend.
Yeah. And the bully calls him a tulip.
Yes.
Which I assume is supposed to be kind of like derogatory. However, I would love to be called a tulip.
I want to be called a tulip. The other thing was, I'll call you tulip. The other thing is, there's also that, and this happens a lot even still, but in the movie where they're like a body shaming to boys with, oh, you must have a small penis.
Right.
And that's what they kind of say about, like, they make and kind of imply that the bully guy has a small penis, which, you know, there are, like, penises come in all shapes and sizes. But I just want to say this. Okay. I feel bad. I feel bad for boys out there who are growing up and are made to feel like society does put that on boys. Like, you have to have a big penis in order to be whatever. And, you know, that's terrible. That's a terrible thing.
Good for you, Emily. Liberating tiny penises. You feel really good about yourself.
I do. I feel bad for, like, because I can just, it's almost like there are things with girls that are like, there's body shaming for girls, like girls are made to feel terrible, and I feel like there's a lot of talk around that. Like, when you talk about body shaming, I feel like it's certainly more a female thing that is talked about, but they really don't talk about it as much with men.
Right. And
there is that huge thing in society where, you know, penis size is certainly a thing that is talked about quite a bit. And, I can't even imagine what someone might go through with something like that. Why are you laughing?
I don't know. You're so passionate.
Because I can't help it. I think it's because I have 2 sons, and I just feel like, boys can't help any of this stuff, and they're just supposed to deal with it and be like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just deal with it.
Okay. Well,
So
let's move on from that conversation.
You don't want to talk about tiny penises anymore. Okay.
And I kind of think too, like, while some people have identified this movie as, something that at the time was good for certain groups of people, I don't want to speak for people too. So I would be interested to hear if it was the positive influence that people said it was.
I mean, it was such a sidelined movie. Like, it wasn't a hugely popular movie.
No.
It was certainly a memorable movie because I feel like it had this very interesting premise. So it was certainly a movie that I remember hearing about, and I remember being a thing. I don't remember the talk at the time about it. I mean, it's not a great movie just in terms of movies itself. Like, it's not
a pretty good movie.
It's got some great lines in it that I did appreciate. Like, I talked about the balls one before. Another one I really like is, "For God's sake, Linda, I vacuumed."
Yeah, that's pretty great. That's the little brother.
That's the little brother. Little brother is my favorite in this thing. And he's supposed to be this oversexed little kid, and all he wants to do in the 2 weeks while his parents are away is get laid. That's like his one thing.
Loses virginity.
Loses virginity.
Yes, he's very horny, as he says.
Aww.
Which, thank God.
Oh, no, another great one that he says is, "Horny will kick embarrassment's ass every time."
I'm really glad that we got away from using the word horny so much in culture, in pop culture.
I don't like that word.
I don't like it either.
No.
He has a lot of Playboys. We talked about that. They're all up around his room.
Do we feel like this movie was confidently controversial?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think this movie was like
defines that.
It's like boldly just doing its thing, just unconscious of what it's doing. Like, I feel like it's a premise movie. They went with the premise, but had no idea what they were actually doing with this.
What the ramifications would be, positive or negative.
Right.
There's a part in it where Terry says, "Beautiful women are nothing but decorations." And I think that is really something because of that whole culture of hanging the pictures on the wall.
Oh,
and
sure.
like the assumption that, instead of a journalist, she should be a model. Like, that's the value that was placed on.
And I think that's
women.
I think that's what they were trying to say with this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think that they were trying with this point. As you said before, that whole thing where the teacher does say, your writing's not that good as a boy either. I think that really killed it.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have done that.
No.
Because it definitely, if they were trying to say something with this movie, I mean, her
didn't. Article should have been just as good, but then she should have decided to switch it to this premise after she wrote it, or it should have been another thing that she wrote or something like that. Like, they didn't need to.
Right, where she maybe felt like, well, I don't want to get this under false pretenses, so I'm going to write this whole fresh article about something that's more interesting, and I'm going to type feverishly.
Right. Till I get out of breath.
Can I tell you what else annoyed me about that? And you're going to, hate me for saying this.
Okay.
But when they did, a close-up of the paper that she was writing, the paragraph, the distance in the paragraph, it was, double spaced at the top, or maybe, a 1.5 space. And then when she's typing, it's a single space.
Oh, okay.
I didn't like that.
Okay. Well, hopefully she's a better typist these days.
Yeah, she went on to, she works at a foundation now. She's not an actress. She writes things.
Oh, good.
So she is a writer. So maybe she did get better at making her spacing on her papers better.
Probably.
I hope so. So overall, I'm going to tell people not to watch this movie.
Not to?
Not to.
Oh.
You want people to watch this movie?
I do. I think it's a good movie.
I want to watch this. I want one of our, a queer friend to watch this.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear, one of their thoughts about this movie. So, if you're queer, watch this movie and then tell us what you think about it.
Yeah, I'd definitely be interested in hearing genuine feedback, not just assumptions about how this movie was impactful in that culture.
Sure.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think they meant to do that. So,
no.
I'm not giving this movie points for, reaching out to queer youth or anything. Because I don't think they meant to do that at all.
No. All right, well, I think that means we're going to stop talking about this movie now. Do you feel like we've sufficiently covered all the points?
I don't think that there's anything else to talk about.
All right,
with this movie.
so...
And I'm Siobhan. I hope that Siobhan is Kim's younger sister. I hope that you enjoyed our view of this movie. And I know you're going to have something to say about it afterwards. I look forward to your texts.
Definitely. Text me. All right, so we are going to now do what we do at the end of every episode.
It's my favorite part.
Which is to figure out how many degrees from James Spader this movie is.
Now, did you already figure this out?
I did not.
Kim!
I know, I forgot.
We decided that if you pick the movie, you have to do the James Spader thing.
I know. I'm sorry.
Okay,
so
well, now we gotta pause.
And we're gonna figure it out.
Okay.
We'll be right back. All right, so for once in my life, I've figured it out.
I'm so excited.
You should be very proud of me. I never figured it out.
I'm always proud of you, but in this moment, I am more proud of you than I perhaps have ever been.
Okay,
so go ahead.
Billy Jane is the brother in Just One of the Guys.
That's the brother that we love.
That's what we love, Buddy.
Okay.
He was in Parker Lewis Can't Lose, as we discussed.
Which is a great show.
With an actor named Timothy Stack, who you would recognize from a lot of different things. He's definitely a character actor that's been a lot of things. Timothy Stack was in Parker Lewis Can't Lose. Timothy Stack was in Back to School.
Back to School?
What's that?
What happens in Back to School?
Back to School's about that older guy that goes back to school. He's a comedian. He's like, I don't get no respect. What's his name?
Rodney Dangerfield?
Rodney Dangerfield.
Okay.
So Timothy Stack was in Back to School with Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. was in Less Than Zero with Andrew McCarthy, and Andrew McCarthy was in Mannequin with
Huzzah!
Spader.
You did it!
It's done.
And we got to hear your amazing Rodney Dangerfield impersonation.
It's quite...
Hey, how you doing? I don't get no respect.
Yeah, you guys probably don't know who that is, but look.
No, of course they know who it is. It's more surprising that you don't know who it is.
I just couldn't remember his name.
I know, I couldn't remember Back to School. And Timothy Stack, what does he look like?
He's tall and has dark hair, and I feel like he was on a show called Son of the Beach.
Son of the Beach.
He was like the lead.
Oh, yes, I know.
Yeah,
that was a fun. He's funny.
Yeah, he's funny.
He's a funny man.
Oh, you're funny.
Oh, you're so funny.
All right, so
that was good.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay.
Make sure you guys are following us at Confidently Controversial on Instagram. We're definitely trying to post more and give you guys some insight into the movies we're watching, and
we want to hear from you. So certainly, send us some messages.
Yeah, we see.
Let us know what you think.
We see that you're listening, and we thank you for that. And we want to hear from you.
So yeah, just drop us a line. We're excited to hear from you. We're excited that you're listening, and as always, stay confident in all that you do.
But try not to be so controversial, guys.
Keep it to a chill level.
That's enough.
Have a great week. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Confidently controversial.